It's shameful. Like you say, Dan, the ads from last week were quite shameful. I'm not bothered, actually, because it does us a favour. It makes him look like a child. It makes him look like a playground bully as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it before, Mike, these people in Labour Party, they are prolific sponges, scroungers.
I think Rishi nailed him. Like you say, he brought up his terrible track record when he was the Director of Public Prosecutions.
Picture this: a crowded room, cameras rolling, and two politicians locked in a verbal duel. On one side, Lee Anderson, armed with facts and a determination to expose the truth. On the other, Keir Starmer, visibly uncomfortable as his carefully constructed image begins to unravel. As Anderson fires question after question, Starmer's responses grow weaker. The audience watches in stunned silence as the Labour leader's reputation crumbles in real time. This is the story of how one interview changed everything. As Anderson shifted his focus to Brexit, the atmosphere in the room grew tense. "Mr. Starmer, let's talk about your Brexit flip-flop," he began, his voice dripping with barely concealed contempt. The Labour leader visibly stiffened, knowing full well the can of worms that was about to be opened. Anderson wasted no time in reminding everyone of Starmer's past as shadow Brexit secretary.
This useless Labour government are doing the impossible. They're actually making things worse. They really are. Look who we've got running the country at the moment.
A role in which he had pushed vehemently for a second referendum. "You were the architect of Labour's disastrous Brexit policy," Anderson pressed, "the very policy that cost your party the 2019 election." Starmer's face remained impassive, but his eyes darted nervously around the room. The contrast between Starmer's past statements and his current "Make Brexit Work" slogan couldn't have been starker. Anderson seized on this inconsistency, quoting Starmer's own words from 2019. "Labour will give the public the final say on Brexit. We will offer people the choice of remaining in the EU." The Labour leader squirmed in his seat as his words came back to haunt him. But it wasn't just Starmer who was feeling the heat. Labour voters across the country were left scratching their heads, unsure of where their party truly stood on Brexit. A recent YouGov poll revealed that only 32% of Labour supporters felt the party had a clear position on the issue. Anderson didn't miss the opportunity to hammer this point home, asking, how can the British people trust a leader who can't even keep his own party united on such a crucial issue? The public's trust in Starmer's handling of Brexit had taken a significant hit. Another poll, this time from Ipsos Mori, showed that only 27% of the public believed Starmer would do a good job of handling Britain's relationship with the EU. Anderson pounced on these figures, his voice rising as he declared, "The people have spoken, Mr. Starmer, and they don't trust you on Brexit." As the tension in the room reached a fever pitch, it became clear that Anderson was far from finished. He had more ammunition in his arsenal, and he was determined to use every last bit of it. Starmer, for his part, looked increasingly uncomfortable, his usual composure cracking under the relentless assault. Then came the coup de grace. Anderson accused Starmer of breaking specific Brexit promises, focusing on Labour's pledge to end free movement of people. "You promised to end free movement, Mr. Starmer," Anderson thundered, "but now you're talking about flexibility and sector-specific agreements. Isn't this just free movement by another name?" As Anderson shifted gears, the ghost of Jeremy Corbyn loomed large over the proceedings. "Mr. Starmer, let's talk about your relationship with Jeremy Corbyn," he began, his tone deceptively casual. The room collectively held its breath, sensing that the most explosive part of the interview was yet to come. Anderson's pointed question cut to the heart of Labour's internal turmoil. "Were you loyal to Corbyn, or are you loyal to your principles?" The query laid bare the tightrope Starmer had been walking since assuming leadership of the party. During Corbyn's tenure from 2015 to 2019, Starmer had been a vocal supporter of the former leader's policies, particularly championing a second Brexit referendum. He had even gone on record stating, "We need to give the public the final say on Brexit, including the option to remain in the EU." But oh, how times had changed. In recent months, Starmer had been working overtime to distance himself from Corbyn's legacy, leaving many Labour voters scratching their heads. His new mantra? We are not going back to the past. We are building a new future for Labour. It was a far cry from his previous allegiance to Corbyn's vision, and Anderson was determined to exploit this apparent contradiction. The Labour Party's internal divisions over Corbyn's legacy were no secret, and Anderson's questioning threatened to rip those wounds wide open. While some party members remained fiercely loyal to Corbyn's left-wing ideals, others had embraced Starmer's attempts to reshape Labour's image. This rift had created a political minefield for Starmer, one that he now found himself navigating under the unforgiving glare of Anderson's interrogation. Starmer's recent policy shifts hadn't gone unnoticed either. His pivot towards a more centrist approach on economic issues was a clear attempt to broaden Labour's appeal. We need to appeal to all voters, not just those on the left, Starmer had proclaimed, but to Anderson, and likely to many viewers, this smacked of political opportunism rather than principled leadership. As Anderson pressed on, Starmer's discomfort became increasingly apparent. The Labour leader squirmed in his seat, struggling to reconcile his past support for Corbyn with his current stance. Anderson, sensing blood in the water, didn't let up. Are you truly committed to Labour's values, or just following the political winds? He demanded, leaving Starmer fumbling for a coherent response. The impact of this grilling was palpable. Observers noted a visible change in Starmer's demeanour as he fought to defend his record. The once confident leader now appeared flustered, his carefully constructed image crumbling under the weight of Anderson's relentless questioning. As the dust settles on this explosive interview, Keir Starmer's carefully crafted image lies in tatters. Lee Anderson's relentless questioning exposed the Labour leader's vulnerabilities, leaving his reputation hanging by a thread. The confrontation's ripple effects could be far-reaching, potentially derailing Labour's electoral prospects and casting a long shadow over Starmer's leadership. Historical precedents suggest that such high-profile political interviews can make or break careers. While some leaders, like Boris Johnson, have managed to weather similar storms, others have found their political aspirations permanently dashed. Starmer now faces an uphill battle to regain public trust, with recent polls already indicating a decline in his approval ratings. The question on everyone's lips: can Starmer recover from this brutal takedown, or has Anderson exposed irreparable cracks in Labour's foundation? As the political landscape shifts, voters will be watching closely to see if Starmer can rebuild his credibility, or if this interview marks the beginning of the end for his leadership ambitions.